Hello and welcome to Thought Leader Magazine. My name is Chris Carr. I am the host of today's show. Before we start, I want to, of course, encourage you to like and subscribe and hit that notification so you're going to get regular updates from us. On today's show, we are talking about how companies adopt digital transformation. And we have an awesome guest. I've known him for years. He's a genius. He's awesome. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy that. Mr. Brian Dainis, welcome to Thought Leader Magazine.
Well, with the genius bar there, you set the bar high for me. So now I have to really.
I don't say it for everybody.
I have to really impress people here to live up to that.
So the backstory that I remember is you found us because we were doing some digital marketing, and then you came in and started showing us your portfolio, and I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are really, really good at what they do. And it's really fun to know, you're kind of like right in our backyard. And, we're probably running parallel with each other for years and just didn't know. But, man, you guys kill it. So
yeah,
tell
likewise,
me,
you guys as well. And I think we were introduced by CCDC or something. I can't remember.
Something like that. Yeah, dude, it's been crazy, right? I think I've known you for almost 6 years now.
Yeah, time flies.
So we're talking about adopting digital, adopting like a digital transformation and just how companies, medium and large size businesses, basically take that big leap. I think what happens is that you can wake up one day and you're so used to just doing business, how you've been doing operations, how you've been doing things. And that technology has closed the gap, but it's just very hard to make that leap. So unpack adopting digital transformation from your perspective. What are you seeing?
Yeah, sure. So, companies that are tech-first companies that are born in the digital era, this is less applicable to them. They're especially companies that are hiring in-house tech folks, and they're designing their systems on modern technology now. Mostly your tech startups and your hyper-growth companies. This is less of an issue, but where we're seeing this, most prevalent is in companies that have been around, for several decades or more, especially your private multi-family generation companies, your mid-market and larger enterprise companies that have just built business process, have done things a certain way for so many decades. And, maybe 30, 40 years ago, they were doing things on paper and they had, faxes and, they were writing stuff down and using typewriters and all these kind of, slow, non-redundant, redundant might not be the right word, but non-scalable processes in today's day and age. So what is happening now is technology leaders in these companies that are doing their job well and making a big impact and helping move the needle, increase the bottom line, reduce inefficiencies within the organization. What they're doing is they're seeing digital transformation as a huge opportunity for their enterprises, and they're looking at the entire business. Every department within a company has a technology aspect to it. So tech is deeply embedded within all companies, especially now more than ever with so much happening remotely. So what we're finding, we work a lot with those, anywhere from the SMB up to, the upper middle market sector. We've done some in the enterprise space, but typically digital transformation at that scale is done by, big consulting companies like your Accentures or your E&Ys or Deloitte's. So our sweet spot is in that SMB to middle market space where you've got companies, some as small as 10 million in revenue and some on the bigger end and, a couple billion size and everything in between. There's so much ripe opportunity to help these companies leverage technology.
Yeah. And so give me some examples of some of the things that you're doing, so that kind of the people that are watching the show can kind of get a grasp of some of the challenges that you faced and what you did with from the technology aspect to overcome them. You have any examples?
Yeah, processes. Let's start on the sales side because that's usually the entryway for a customer experience with an organization. So on the sales side, we've seen a lot where especially in manufacturing is a great example. Manufacturing companies have complex sales processes. They've typically got sales folks out in the field that are talking to to buyers of their widgets, and then they've got engineering folks back at the at the plant that are receiving receiving requests for quotes. They're figuring out where they're going to source the materials from, where does it fit into their job queue, what machines do they need to use, how many man hours, what's the tooling required to do the job. These types of companies, historically have done this all through paper, faxing, requirements back and forth, phone calls. A lot of these companies still do it that way, believe it or not. And there's a lot of administrative overhead there. So you can actually, go into a manufacturing company, look at those processes. And we're working with one now. They're a smaller company. They're, I don't know their exact revenue, but they're probably somewhere in the 20 to $50 million range. And they have, based on a phase one initiative that we're putting out there to them now, we're in the process of kicking that off. With roughly $100K price tag on the initiative, they're able to free up 80% of their lead salesperson's time on administrative tasks and reduce an entire admin person. So now that salesperson can go out and work more deals in the field and follow up with customers, be in front of customers, be on client-facing meetings more often with more of his time. And their admin person can now focus her time on other aspects of the business. Working with the other departments to help lighten their load, and eventually we'll be able to impact other parts of the organization as well. We started on the sales side, calculating the ROI just on the based on the salesperson's compensation and the admin person's compensation. The ROI break point for this first initiative is within 6 to 8 months. The cost per year in payroll and employee costs is well over $100,000. So, and that's just hard costs. That's not factoring in the lost opportunity cost, not being in front of your customers and not out there pursuing new business. So you can see quickly how adopting this, adopting, especially in an industry like manufacturing where there's so many laggards there. Adopting these sort of transformations within your organization has profound impact on the bottom line of the business.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, we're small enough to realize, because you have so many people wearing so many hats, that one of the big challenges that we have, even just as a small business, is that every time we want to scale, we got to hire more. And I know it sounds weird, but it's like you're chasing margin. Every time you feel like you get ahead, you got to hire someone, and then you're making more money, but your margin's still the same.
That's the services business for you.
Yeah, man, it's the worst, isn't it?
we're the same exact model here, and it's right now we're seeing some growth. So we were just talking behind the scenes there. My COO, we're constantly we were kind of going back and forth today, and she used the analogy that we're playing tug of war with each other, because she's like freaking out, like, how are we going to get all these jobs done? And I'm trying to pull consultants off of projects to work on a deal that's coming through, and she'll say, well, I need them for this, and so it's like a tug of war to just manage all the resources within your company when you're a service business.
I know it's really tough too, because unfortunately, from our perspective, sales always seems to trump operations. And then all of a sudden I go in these meetings and I'll say, you know what, we got these deadlines and people have to work these extra hours to catch up. And I was like, well, how did they get so far off? And it's like, well, they took 10 hours to help you scope a project. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, I don't even think we were even going to get that. It's like, yeah, but you know what? You're going to bleed somewhere. So, you know what I mean? That's tough, because especially in the service industry, and I guess some of even the companies you're talking about, efficiency definitely turns into dollars and cents. And I think that's, how do you create that argument? Meaning, that you can solve a big time and efficiency, scenario. Is it simply, hey, what is the manpower hours of someone who's doing that job, and how many hours am I going to eliminate? Therefore, this is how much you're going to save, and this is what he can either pivot, or you can. How do you come up with your ROI scenarios? Is it just that simple, or is there a math? There's an equation to this. How do you do it?
Yeah, so we actually will write it out in a math equation. So we always go into an organization, we map their current process flow. So we create a visual first and then a textual definition of what their current process flow is for whichever department or component of the organization we're trying to impact. And then we'll look at it, we'll digest it. They sometimes, working in the business every day can't see the forest through the trees. So we bring a fresh perspective to the to the department or to the business, and can look at the entire operation as a whole. We can look at all the individual pieces. We can look at where the inefficiencies are, and then we can kind of figure out where the low-hanging fruit is. So we'll come back. We're not trying to change everything. That if we can make small improvements that have incremental but high ROI value to the organization, we want to do it that way, because then you're not changing too much too fast, and if you do that, you're going to get pushback with big change. So we try to find those incremental low-hanging fruit items that will have big ROI. Then we'll map out, here's the current process flow. So now what does the ideal process flow look like? Or what does the proposed process flow look like? And again, we're not trying to boil the ocean. We're just trying to make some small improvements a piece at a time. So this is an iterative process where we go current, ideal with small bites all on the way. Mm-hmm. And then we take the diff between the current and the ideal that we're proposing. We calculate, here's how much it's going to cost to implement this. So this is how much you're going to pay in consulting fees to do this. This is how much you're going to pay in software. This is how much you're going to pay in, ongoing licensing fees. This is how much downtime this will create for your business, or how much retraining you'll have to do, and what that dollar amount equates to. So now we have a total cost for this change, and we know what the total cost is. Now we're going to look back and calculate, based on this change, what expected output can we see? What are the results? What will this change do to the organization? And how does that equate to dollars? So then we look at, here's your investment, here's your ROI. We typically aim for, especially when we're first getting in, we look for the 5 and 10Xers, because that's how you're really going to get the attention of the leadership teams. And then after you do a couple 5 or 10Xers, they start to really just trust you and see you as a partner. And then you can start to attack the other areas of improvement. But, essentially in our proposals, we always start with a presentation, and we'll just do a slide deck and give them a bunch of, we'll build everything up the way I just explained it. So, here's why you guys called us, or here's what the conversation is about. That's the entry into the presentation. Mm-hmm. Then we'll go into current process flows, where the issues are, what we're suggesting, ideal process flows, what the changes are. And then all those, ROI calculations are just a bunch of math equations that boil down to a dollar amount.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds really logical. Now, how do you get people to adopt it? Do you ever run into these situations where the technology solves a problem and then it's just the adoption still the challenge? Because, like, for example, we implement CRMs all the time. We believe in CRMs. We believe it creates transparency within an organization, particularly in sales. But we also are keenly aware that, like, bringing up a blank spreadsheet, putting in a couple columns, you can have a CRM on a spreadsheet in no time. Is it scalable? No. Is it transparent? No. But we also know how easy it is. And so we have clients who buy CRMs and still live off their spreadsheets. So what do you do? What do you do there how do you force adoption is it just training?
So there's a couple good answers to that question. So first, the answer is never to force adoption, because, that, like, force is met with resistance. So
yeah, sure.
The first thing I think that, like, just really, is the most important objective is to get a champion within the organization that has some level of seniority over the people who are going to be managing this task. So that way, you've got that person who's going to champion the initiative and really be your advocate internally to make this change happen. Mm-hmm. The second thing, it's psychology, is make the change aligned with the people who will be doing the work's best interests. So, maybe there's a some sort of a KPI dashboard built into the CRM that warrants a bonus at the end of each quarter. Whoever does the most XYZ gets ABC for doing that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, is whether there's you can have an incentive structure that says, hey, you know what, this technology is going to give us cost savings of 80%. I'm going to be able to give 5%, spread it across my team, and we're all going to win. You know what I mean? Like, so that's, it's interesting. I mean, so that's what you're up against all the time, right? You're solving a problem, but then you also have to figure out how to get people to adopt it.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, some of the companies we work with are either small enough, or the department that we're working with is small enough that we can pull together all the people that will be using it into a room. So for those cases, it's a lot easier because you can wrangle everybody up and get on the same page. But when you get into larger companies, especially international companies with offices across different continents, that's where it gets more challenging when they've all got to use the software. It becomes challenging.
Is it the exact opposite problem too? Like, you ever get people in a room and you solve this problem for Eddie in accounting, and then all of a sudden the light bulb goes off in the room, and they're like, wow, if he can solve that for Eddie, I bet you he could solve this problem that we run into here. And in the marketing aspect, when I get a crowded room, it's like, that's the best scenario for me, because I get to dream with one and everybody else just looks over and is like, how come he gets to have that? How come I don't get to have that? And then all of a sudden I'm working with 5 different departments. That's the ideal scenario. So you run into that too?
Yeah, absolutely. When you do good work like you guys do, it just, word spreads throughout the company, and it's only a matter of time before you expand the opportunity.
Well, I'm assuming that's on the same way you guys are, right? If you're making one department efficient and the other departments are in the room, if they want to win, they're probably like, oh my gosh, I wonder what adjustments we need to make and what investments can we do to save time, energy, money, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends. So there's two kinds of, ways we've been brought into these deals. So one is, either the leadership team calls us, or the other case sometimes is that a private equity firm calls us and just kind of inserts us into a portfolio company. And then in those cases, it's kind of top down. So, we're kind of looking at the big picture in those cases. The other case that comes up, or the other scenario, is that sometimes we start where one person within one department or one, silo within the company will call us, and we'll start there. And then the objective for our perspective is to land and expand. So we want to, do stellar work, make some great relationships, and then kind of pick their brain and figure out who else we should talk to, where else we should have conversations, and then hop silos.
Yep. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm going to switch gears on you, but it's related to your industry. So I'm not a big political guy. It's funny because I'll say I'm not a big political guy, and then I'll know certain things about politics. But I was watching one of the conventions and got really charmed by that, by Andrew Yang. He was talking about how many jobs will be displaced, when automation kind of comes through. And I started to really get scared about that. And then, obviously there's going to be a subset of America that does get displaced. But what I did was, in kind of figuring out whether his argument was really sound, I started to figure out, are there contractors or, the people that disagree with him? And I started to agree with people that disagreed with him. And here's what I'm trying to pick your brain about. What the contractors say is that we have jobs for people you're basically in a chair sometimes because that's a job that needs to get done. And the things that can scale a business often land in a category of what we could do, not what we should do, but what we could do. But we're so busy doing the things we should do that we rarely get time to do what we could do. And so what technology will do is it will help companies pivot, because the shoulds get handled by automation. And now we have new jobs doing things in the areas of what we could do. And so it's not like the jobs that get eliminated, they pivot to other things. Companies grow, they get to do things that they never could have dreamed, because it's just like the bar moved. Where do I did a lot of talking there. What's your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, and this topic can be one that can be pretty passionate for some people. Sometimes in a heated way. I can definitely understand what you're saying there, and Andrew Yang, he's an interesting guy. I watched a few of his talks. I saw him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and
Yeah, that's where I found him first, was Joe Rogan.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I watched some of his other stuff. He's done a lot. He put a lot out there. Unfortunately, I wish I could have heard more from him. Unfortunately, he kind of backed out. I was really curious to see where he was going. I think some of his stuff made a lot of sense. I think some of it was scratching my head on.
Me
but
too.
The one thing that he did say about the automation, I think very well could happen. Now, where he really got it right, I would say, is that most people, a lot of politicians and a lot of people out there are saying things like, all right, well, we've got all, we know self-driving trucks are coming. We know it's gonna, it's not gonna replace everything, but it might replace, even if it's 25% even if it's 25% in the next 20 years of trucks on the road go autonomous, then how many jobs is that? I don't know the answer, but I think that's the largest. I think Andrew Yang pulled a statistic. I'd have to fact check this, but I think he said it's one of the largest jobs, and maybe next to retail or something. It's one of the largest jobs in the country.
Yeah.
Or something.
And that's how Teamsters and Jimmy Hoffa and all that stuff happened. It's shocking how many truck drivers there are across America.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Like the product's got to get to point A to point B, but you know what I mean? It's logic, but you never think about the quantity of these.
And we're only going to see more trucks on the road because e-commerce is more and more popular. Retail's dying, e-commerce is exploding, so that equals more trucks, that equals more warehouses. So there's more of these jobs now.
Yeah.
Warehousing, I think that's going to become more automated. Trucking, I think that's going to become more automated in the future. How soon? We'll find out. Mm-hmm. One thing, we tend to see as humans is that, when people cause car accidents or make fatal events or mistakes rather, we just kind of accept it. But when a machine fails and makes, a mistake like that, or, breaks down and causes a fatal road accident, then there's a lot more pushback,
I know. It's like you got to pitch a perfect game if you're a machine, yet humans make mistakes all the time.
So that's always going to be, a social barrier to fully autonomous vehicles and trucking. But let's assume we get past all that and we truly do automate all these truck jobs and warehouse jobs, and there's millions of Americans out of work. What a lot of people say is retrain them, reskill them, teach them how to write code. Sounds like a utopian idea. I think, when you get somebody who's been a blue collar person for their whole career and has been driving trucks, and that's what they know, that's what they're good at, that's what they want for themselves. I think where that's where Andrew Yang really hit the nail on the head, because a lot of people are saying, yes, automation's coming, we need to reskill all these people, but has anybody actually polled the truck drivers of the world and said, how many of you actually want to even be retrained? They all don't want to be retrained. They all want their jobs. They want to keep driving trucks. So, and that comes back to the deeper level of purpose too. I think, one thing Andrew Yang missed was that, all right, well, let's just give everybody free money and they can sit at home and do whatever they want. But, what's going to happen with people who lose purpose in their life? If they don't have, something that they're doing, if they feel useless, what's that going to do to, mental health in the country?
I get it.
So it's a complex problem. I don't know where it's going to go, but that's my 2 cents on it.
But let me ask you just one more question. One of the questions I was trying to ask you though is that, are you seeing companies be able to pivot and do things that they never could have, and rather than that person losing their job, they actually get to go into a new job in a new place? You know what I mean? Like my dad, he stayed with the same company for 35 years. And then I started to list the jobs that he did, and it was just the company changed. And so he was able to move up the ladder to something. I was like, are you trained for that? He's like, no, I just got trained. We live in this world where if you don't feel like you're qualified, all of a sudden you got to look for a new job, where hopefully there's growth within a company, because companies are able to do things now that they never could have before, because technology is covering their needs. So now they can dream more. Are you seeing that?
I haven't, I can't say I have firsthand experience with any of that. I think it's ultimately going to come down to, first of all, how companies adapt. So what are the changes that they're adapting to? Where are they losing need for skill or labor, and where are they gaining need for skill or labor? And is that transferable? Do the people that are going from the losing position to potentially being plugged in somewhere else in the organization, do they have the desire, the skill, and the aptitude? Maybe not the skill, maybe the retraining that could happen, but do they have the desire and the aptitude to be retrained and plugged in?
Yeah.
And that's where we'll have to kind of see where that goes. I think that's the big question.
Yeah. It is a big question, and I think more politicians, I was hoping Andrew Yang was going to start this thing and more politicians would actually talk about it. I'm not trying to do so much of base the show on politics, but I am trying to say that eventually the things that we trickle down through automation trickle down to the average guy. I'm not so sure that it's the same time frame that he said it was. I think it's going to be a little bit longer, but it could be dire if we can't figure out a way to make sure the people that aren't willing to pivot, like that there's something that they can do, something they can have purpose, like you were saying, because I don't think there's a plan B out there, and it's going to scratching my head on what that could mean,
Yeah. And it's a good question because, going back to the manufacturing company we started out talking about, in their case, they're not planning to let go of anybody, or they're not, they're making tasks redundant. They're making them or obsolete rather. They're automating away manual labor for what their salespeople are doing, but they have skilled, qualified salespeople doing a heck of a lot of automated manual labor that could be automated. So by automating that, we're now opening up the door for them to go and create new business lines and talk to more people and nurture the existing clients and accounts they already have. So in that case, that's that's a win-win. But there certainly is there certainly is companies out there that are automating jobs that are done by currently done by large labor forces, especially in businesses like heavy administrative data entry type jobs. There's a lot of robotics processing automation that's automating away your paralegal type people, or your bookkeeper type people, or insurance claims processing. These industries have been a target for our RPA implementations, and it's certainly going to be a more and more of a conversation point going forward.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't think the fear of the job displacement can stop us from growing from the technology space. I don't think it will, and I don't think it should. You know what I mean? I would like to be able to find ways where I'm waiting for that one innovation, right? That when you replace a job, that there's still this place to go. So it's like, imagine just like certain lower level jobs that they would still find meaning doing. But if they did move out, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that next thing is, like, it's funny how you think, well, what could that possibly be? Right. Well, when I was, what was that, like 19 years old, the internet was born, at least in my mind. That's when I saw it. Right. Could there be something that big where, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't see it on the horizon, but you start to just think like maybe technology in its own way will solve its own problem. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know. Now let's go back.
Maybe that thing is AI. A lot of people talk a lot about AI and make it to be something like it's this Terminator that's going to hit any day and we're going to have a singularity and it's taking over the world. But there's a funny meme I saw one time that sums it up really nicely. It's the Scooby-Doo gang, and they caught one of the ghouls, and they're saying, all right, gang, let's see who the real artificial intelligence is. And they rip off the mask, and it's just, the face is just like a blank face, and it just says if. It's just a bunch of if statements. Basically kind of like bringing AI down to what it really is, just a whole bunch of conditional branching that gets often branded as AI because that's sexy to the investors.
Yeah. One of the things that did scare me, and I'm hoping I'm not getting off the beaten track here, is that the Guardian posted an article that was written completely by a robot. Like basically, it was a bot that wrote an article. It was made from Caltech, and it researched all the articles about AI and things like that, and then it wrote this amazing 1,000-word article. Right, the editor who took that article, edited what he said, and he did about 1/5 of the editing time that he would have if a human did it. And what scares me, right, is the idea of, as a content marketer, that if a robot can pump out content like that and it's actually good enough, if it's good enough to write content, it'll be good enough to figure out SEO. And then all of a sudden you could have 10,000 articles about any subject matter, pharmaceuticals, a publicly traded product. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden 10,000 articles written. It's crazy what will happen to the web when the volume, if you could have a volume explosion just like that, because a machine can generate that level of content. You know what I mean? It falls into that realm of like, it's cool that we could, but I don't know whether we should.
Yeah. I think it's the kind of thing where if you saturate one frontier, then the value of that frontier gets diminished, and then a new frontier will emerge, and that's where the companies and people who adapt will find that new frontier and leverage it.
Yeah, and I've seen that in the adoption of video in the last 3 to 5 years as well. I mean, so we study conversion like crazy, and adopting video into your content, it's just like, it's night and day difference between when someone can add a video to their content compared to just written word.
Sure.
And so, you know what I mean? So that's just a small example, but that's how it translates. So let's go back to some of the things that you're doing here. So what kind of results does the average person look to gain? So obviously you have the financial results or the ROI results, stuff like that. What are you seeing in give me another case study that you have of a challenge that you solved, and what does it look like on the other side?
Sure. So every company has a different set of needs, a different set of challenges, and oftentimes they don't know what questions to even ask. They know they're falling behind in the industry. They know they've done things a certain way for a long time, and they know they're not using technology to its fullest capabilities, and they know they need help. So a lot of times many times that's how companies will come to us. Sometimes we'll get more sophisticated clients that already kind of have their finger on the pulse, and they need us for a very specific specialized skill set, like working with a certain technology or integration. And they just want to augment their team with our skill sets. And that's more of a transactional, client, but, with more of our strategic clients where we're doing these digital strategy consulting initiatives, or digital transformation rather. The conversation typically is, it's starting with, what questions do we want to ask? What data points do we need to measure, and how do we get those data points? And it's usually a foundational issue that there's not the right systems in place to even if we knew what the questions were that we wanted answered, we can't get the answers because the system isn't built to provide us that information.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot
of sense.
So,
a lot of times it's just kind of getting our heads wrapped around how do we fix the foundation, and then how do we build on that from there, and what does that look like, and how do we prioritize? Because we want to we want to build value quickly. A funny saying I like is, if you put $1 into a vending machine, you don't expect the vending machine to give you a PowerPoint on how hard it's working to give you a soda.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do that to our clients either. We want to give them value and show ROI quickly so that they continue to invest in their digital footprint.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to my next question. If I'm a potential buyer, I'm thinking about how can technology solve my problem. What are the things that a company should run from? Not from you. I'm saying, like, if it's between you and another provider, what are the things that separates a really good provider of technology services versus someone who's just a pretender? Because in the marketing world, we see a lot of pretenders, and it's not my job to stand on their shoulders. But I will say that like a lot of the content I develop, I'm saying, if you hear this, run.
Sure.
Is that in your space?
Yeah, I mean, I think that exists in any consulting or services business where you've got a, we're in the same type of business. We're not tech companies. We're not doing services. We're in the people business. We're helping people with people. We've got people.
Yep.
We're a group of people, and we're helping other groups of people. So, I think there's a few things that are high level when it comes to experience and skill sets. You obviously want to work with a company who's worked with ideally similar industries, but most importantly, similar size companies. Yeah. So if you're going into a $25 billion company and your biggest client is a $50 million company, you're going to really have trouble grasping the scale. It's going to be it's not even going to be apples to apples. So you're going to want to hire a firm who has worked with the scale of companies that you are when making that decision.
Yeah.
You're going to want to look for the fact that they understand, if they can, put in some effort and, rather than just trying to jam a time and materials proposal down your throat, have them, you want to see them put in some effort up front to just kind of demonstrate their value prop to you, because it is, at the end of the day, it's, there's a lot of consulting firms out there. There's a lot of different places you can go. You want to feel that the people you're hiring to bring in understand your business and can deliver results.
Yep.
And I also recommend starting small. Start with a small engagement. We always recommend that for our clients, and it's a two-way assessment. So, we always want to start with something small that we can have a quick turnaround on, so that first of all, they determine if they like working with us, and make sure we understand their business and can deliver results for them, and then vice versa. We don't want to get stuck with a crappy client on a big $500 or $1 million deal. We want to start with something that's small enough that if it just doesn't work, if the relationship doesn't work, we can part ways amicably.
Yeah.
Hard feelings.
Yeah, because I would figure that a synergy fit is going to be critical.
Yep.
I mean, one of the things that I thought would be something that I would hear from you is teams that, and this is what I see in marketing all the time, teams that do very little discovery work and you get a proposal very quickly. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that the speed to proposal isn't important. What I'm saying is if your space is like my space, right? Like I will go and I'll do a presentation and they'll say, okay, cool. Like send me a proposal. And I'm like, no, I can give you a gap assessment proposal, and the gap assessment proposal is a deep dive so that I can figure out what makes your company work. Cause I need to know the full width of this thing. And people that are willing to give you $100,000 proposal based upon spending 2 to 4 hours with you, it's like you're going to lose, and they might win or they might lose, or you're both going to lose. But I can tell you this, that the companies that measure once, what's the expression now? I feel like
once, measure twice.
Yeah, exactly. Measure twice and cut once.
Yeah.
Like those are the ones in marketing, at least in my opinion, that win. Like I always have to compete against these people that are just willing to give a proposal after an hour-long presentation that they probably talked through the majority of the time. I'm like, dude, I need to know way more of your stuff. I mean, I think I have one around here. Like, check this out. Like this is a book that you get from a gap assessment with us, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to do that for everything that you're building, but what I am saying is that if I'm going to develop a 3 to 5 year roadmap to scale your business, I better spend a lot of time getting to know you, your business, and your challenges to see the whole width of this thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm not saying that what you're saying with starting out small isn't a strong idea. It is. But I think I would also be afraid of the companies that feel like they know how to solve your problems and they didn't even ask the right questions or didn't even ask any questions. They just came in, with like their cookie cutter approach.
That's where it comes down. We're in the same business. That's where it comes down to people. And, one of the things that, so I touched on kind of like the qualifiers of the company and the qualifiers of the, kind of like the deal itself. But the other thing is the people aspect, looking for, people that communicate and, have empathy for, others and, can clearly articulate their thoughts while also understanding, multiple perspectives, and that soft skill component is important, and that's critical in consulting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to do your bragging for you. We're about to wrap up. I'm going to do your bragging for you. So you were nominated, was it last year and this year, or was it just last year, to the Philly 100, which I believe is Philly's fastest growing companies?
Yeah, last year was our first year that we applied, and we were number 55 or 54 fastest growing company in Philly, and we applied this year. Haven't heard back if we're in, but I would imagine we're in because we maintain.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I don't want to talk too soon.
We've been growing like a weed, and we looked at the qualifications, and I was just like, crap, we're not going to do it. We didn't have
really?
Kudos to you. I mean, you guys have always been doing great work, but I think making a list like that really kind of shows, just some of the concepts you're saying, like, the way you guys are growing and the problems you're solving for companies, it's helping them win. It's helping you guys win. I'm really excited for you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, this is awesome. So if I'm a potential client, I want to know more about, Curotec and what you guys are doing, how would they reach out to you?
Just go to curotec.com, curotec.com. You can interact with their chat bot, and if you say you're looking to talk with us about a project, you'll get connected to a person. Yep. Or you can just fill out the contact form or call us, and we'll get in touch. We're fast to respond, and we love talking and solving problems. And to your point, we don't just shove a proposal down people's throats. We'll have quite a few conversations, especially for a large project. If we're getting into the six figures on project size, we'll probably spend a month together before we even send a proposal or ask for a payment.
That's awesome. Well, Brian, I'm a huge fan. Thank you so much for your time. Love to do this again. That's going to wrap up our show. Do want to encourage you guys to subscribe, check back. I'm going to we're going to do some editing on this video, and then I'm going to try to post it as soon as possible. But if you want to know more information about how to adopt technology, or you want to just even tell us how wrong we were about Andrew Yang, please feel free to put some things in the comments, and we'll look forward to you next time. Thanks again, Brian.
All right. See you, Chris.
Thanks.